Hello guys, and welcome to this screencast, which is recorded for tutorial prototyping simple Unity 3D game, which is the fifth part of game development with Unity 3D and Facebook series. You can find it on my website, which is blog.i-evaluation.com. This is my first ever screencast, and English is not my first language, so if you get tired with quality, accent or grammar, you can get all the project code from GitHub and then navigate to my blog to move on to the next step. What we need here is very basic idea of the game. So as mentioned, let's create container balls generated by the spawner and award user with 1 point every time he will click the ball. This tutorial is split into 3 parts. In first one, I will introduce you to Unity interface. We'll create the game board, which will be in-game container for balls falling from the sky, and we will create the first object and make it fall with use of rigid body. In part 2, we will create simple materials and apply them on the objects. We will create ball spawner, and we'll try to do the first controller to generate objects on the scene. In the last part, part 3, we will continue creating simple game logic with use of C#. We'll try to respond to user interactions, we'll apply random starting force to the object, and at the end we will try to create game timer. I have Unity application already opened, so let me open one of my projects, and then I will open the scene as well. Firstly, I will quickly speak about the different tabs visible on the screen and a couple of buttons, and then create new project where we will create the first object for our custom game. So the first tab is the scene, which is the main view. This is where you will perform object manipulations, moving them, right and left, forward or backward, maybe up and down as well, where you can rotate them along any axis. Or perhaps scale them along any axis or along all of the axes. Second area is hierarchy, which is basically the list of all the objects present on the scene. So any objects that you put or create on the scene will have own representation in hierarchy. You can select those objects, you can double tap those objects to kind of center them in your scene view. Another tab is a project area, which is the organizer for your whole application. Basically, this is the place where you will store objects, prefabs, scripts, materials, sounds, textures, and all possible assets that you will use in your game. You can also create folders to organize those assets in logical groups, which will make it easier to find them later on. To find those assets, you can actually use the search box located at the top. So let's say I'm looking for the pointer prefab. If I just type pointer, I can actually see the controller, my script, material, and also the pointer prefab. Another area is the inspector area. This is where you will be able to manually change all the properties of your objects grouped in components. This is also the area where you can add new components to your objects. The area located in the center of my screen is the Game tab, which is the game preview. Anytime you're ready to test your game, you can simply hit the play button located in the top of your screen, wait for game to launch, and start interacting with it as regular user would. Notice that when you move your object, the object actually moves as well in the scene view. The last tab is the console area. This is the place where your Unity application will output all possible messages, including debugging logs and, in most cases, errors. Let's go ahead and stop the game now. I am going to start new project and then move on to our game prototype development. I call this new game prototype. Okay, new project has been opened. First thing I want to do is give myself a little bit more space in the main view. So to do that, I start dragging my tabs to position them in slightly different way. So I leave my game preview maybe on the top here, put my inspector at the bottom. Okay, that gives me a little bit more space for the because I'm recording that video, I'm using slightly lower resolution. Okay, right now I have a little bit more space in my scene view, which will allow me to move my objects more freely. Okay, I will start from building container, which will be the part of our game board. So let's go ahead and create the first cube. Maybe it makes more sense to position inspector in here. And project at the bottom here. Okay. So let's position our cube in the center of the screen. Now I want to scale it to have nice flat object. In next step I want to rename it to floor to keep things a little bit more organized, and then I will start creating our walls. I need one more cube, which will be the first wall. I like to keep things organized, and for that reason I'm going to create empty object which will work as a container for other objects. So I rename it as I rename it to game board, and then drag and drop floor inside. Right now if I move my empty game board, you will notice that I'm moving actually floor as well, because the floor game board is a parent to the floor object. I want to do the same thing with the wall. So now when wall is inside and I move my game board, I move the floor and the wall. Okay, let's actually make the wall look like one. I will scale it up. Make it a little bit more narrow. Position that in the center. You can notice that my floor is positioned at the very center of the screen, and it seems like it doesn't really fit to sorry, my wall is positioned in the center of the screen, and it seems like it doesn't really fit to the floor. And the reason is that the floor is not really in the center of the screen, so I quickly fix that. And then with using the control one of the arrows, first I need to select the wall, I just snap it to the edge of the floor. Okay. I select the floor again, hit Ctrl D to duplicate the object and snap it to the other end. Okay. I hit Ctrl D again. Okay, now I want to press E key on the keyboard or click the rotation button. Start rotating this along one of the axes. I know it's Y, so let's do 90 degrees. Go back to my transformation mode and snap it to the far end. I'll zoom it a little bit and use again, hold down the control to okay. Now the last wall, Ctrl D to duplicate the object and snap it to the last edge. Okay, that's our simple container which will hold the balls falling from the sky. So maybe let's go ahead and create the first ball object. To do that, I just deselect everything and create new sphere, and then push it a little bit to the top along the y-axis. Again, something doesn't seem to be right, because I want the ball to be at the very center of my container. I just click it to double check its position. Because I selected the floor, I want to actually check the position of the whole container, and I can see it's not in the center. This inspector properties is something you will be constantly using during your game development, so better get used to it. Okay, we have the basic idea of what we want to create. Okay, so let's slightly change the position and rotation of the camera so we can see a bit more in our game view. You will notice that the objects in the game preview are very dark, and that is because there is no lighting on the scene, but I can go ahead and create the spotlight. I will position this above the scene, increasing its intensity, extending the spot angle. Let's increase the range of the light as well. Okay, now we have the light over the board. You can actually play with those settings to make sure that you're getting the effect that you want. Okay, this is something that looks slightly better. Now I just want to see the ball as well. Okay, I think I'm ready to run my first test. I just hit the play button. I can see all my objects in positions I set them to. To change that, I stop the game, select my ball, and add new component to it. I select physics and rigid body, and make sure that use gravity is ticked. Now if I test the game, you can see that object is falling down. I want to add a little bit of bounciness to it, so I select the ball, go to my sphere collider, and under section material I want to add the physics collision material. I don't really have any materials here, so what I want to do, I want to go to my hierarchy, or in fact I want to go to my project and just import new package. And what I'm looking at is physics materials. Hit the import button, and you have all the physics materials imported. Not many, but few basic ones you can use in your first prototype game. Okay, let's go back to the ball and change the physics material to bouncy, and test the game again. Okay, that looks much better. So now I can go to my sphere collider and select the material and start changing those properties. But better would be to create a copy of the material and then adjust the properties in there. The only property I want to look at really is the bounciness for now, so I just set it to 0.5. Make sure that that material is added to my sphere collider, and then hit play again. You can check out part 2 video to add materials and see how we can quickly generate or spawn objects on the scene. Thank you for watching.